Welcome to The Hustle with your host, myself, Ben Anderson. Today, bring on a special guest, a smart mind you're all going to want to hear, Chad Shaw. Chad, welcome today.
Thanks, Ben.
It's not often we get to sit with someone that's got a mind like yours. If you have enough money, then turn the channel. If you need more money or know how to spend the money wisely, this is the show for you. And that's why we hustle, is to make money to make ends meet. And today, we're going to get a first-hand education from you. Your experience will teach us how to spend our money, but also talk about the marketplace. So again, this is a unique guest because he's bringing free advice to you guys on how to spend your money, how to earn your money, and how to keep your money today. So there's a couple things I want to jump into first before we go to get into your story, and that is I want your input to show our audience maybe how you take this whole train show. Two people that I tend to listen to on occasion is Grant Cardone and Gary Vee. Mm-hmm. Two great thought leaders. None of them are financial advisors, but they have influence over financial markets a lot. Both of them have their input on how to spend your money when it comes to home ownership. Mm-hmm. So I want to know your take on two things that I've heard each of them say recently that are trending a lot. Grant Cardone said you should own rental homes, but you should rent the home that you live in because you can't afford to pay for what you could afford to rent. Mm-hmm. Meaning a $20 million mansion may cost you $200,000 a month, but you can rent it for $20,000 a month, mm-hmm. in his mind. And Gary Vee recently had Agent 2021, and he said, in his opinion, he would rather take his money and put it into investing in his business than investing in real estate.
Yeah.
And he caught some flack for it. And I think that what he meant to say was, in my personal opinion, it's in my life plan to take money out of equity in real estate and put it into my business because I can make 10x money in business. Mm-hmm. But that's different for all people.
Yeah.
So what's your take on what these people had to say and how that applies from a financial education standpoint?
Yeah. It's a good question, and I think there's no right answer for anybody in particular. Generally speaking, when we get somebody that comes to us, the first thing that I encourage them to do is to really write down what's important to them, which it sounds as cheesy as it is. Somebody much smarter than me once told me that your values determine your goals determine your strategies, and then the strategies determine the tools or the methods that you use to get there, right? So when it comes to home ownership, I think sometimes people lump in owning or renting a primary and investment strategies as one and the same. To me, they're different. Investing in properties as an asset class and income producing is a very different ball game than primary home ownership, so to speak. So to a degree, if somebody said, hey, you can rent that home for less than it would cost you to own that home and you can live this lifestyle here, that may be true, but it's not going to be true forever, right? If you looked at it over a long range of somebody's lifestyle and planning, sooner or later, if somebody has a mortgage that's a little bit more, it will be paid off eventually. So with the cycle being where it's at, and nobody really knows, quote unquote, what inning we're in, and with home ownership in general, our view is if it fits within somebody's budget, if it fits within the cash flow, if it's a good long-range plan, that there's no perfect answer, but home ownership often fits into that.
So don't stretch your budget, meaning if you're renting for $2,000 a month, and you can buy it for someone in the same ballpark and not burn too much cash to do it, then you got it. But don't go spending your life savings on a down payment and then have 4 times the payment. That's not smart either.
You got it.
So I think if what you're saying is true, is there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's got a different life plan, but it's got to fit the monthly need, but also the cash need.
Exactly. When it comes to primary homes, whether it's a rent or a mortgage, a lot of times even with people's primary residences, we're not looking at, what's the value of the home? What are we putting down? First off, we're looking at what's the cash flow? Does it fit within your budget? Is it sustainable? So if somebody said, hey, that $20 million home is going to cost me X amount of dollars a month, and that would put strain on the rest of my plan right now. It's not that home ownership is bad. It's just maybe you can't afford the $20 million home. Maybe we need to start with something less, purchase what you can purchase now, and then we can work our way up to the $20 million home.
So be more self-aware.
Exactly.
Be self-aware and don't go live with the Joneses. Have a better plan. Go long in your plan. And look, I think that what Gary Vee said is a very valid point, as well as Grant Cardone. But those people are the top 10th of 1% of everything that they do. They're extremely disciplined and they know how to make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. The average first-time home buyer it'd be hard to give them the advice that someone like that is doing, because these people have gone through life cycles and run multi-billion-dollar companies.
Right.
So the average homeowner, if they had the extra $200,000 in their bank, might go spend it on retail.
Yeah.
So it's smart maybe for that person to put it down, because at least it's locked in a savings account, so to speak.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when we're looking at how much to put down and the value of the home, again, I always bring it back to what I would call the four quadrants, right? At the end of the day, money only goes four places. It goes to our fixed bills and expenses, it goes to the tax man, it goes to whatever we choose to save or invest, and then it goes to fun.
I love
right?
that.
The family.
Four quadrants. So again, if you're watching, take notes, because this is great advice. There's 4 places money can go. So bring those back again for me. So
Yeah, sure. So somebody's fixed bills and expenses. So I might think of home, right? Whether it's a mortgage or rent.
Sure.
Cars, utilities, some of those essentials, so to speak. Taxes, right? So that could be taxes on income, taxes from a portfolio standpoint, taxes on your property. You've got whatever you choose to save or invest. And I like to keep that as broad as possible, because somebody that comes in and says, hey, I'm investing in my business, to them, that's an investment. And to a degree, it's a microcap stock, right? There's a lot more risk, but there's also a lot more potential yield in many cases that are there. It could be a coffee can in a backyard. It could be an investment property. It's them peeling off some of what they're earning in effort to build wealth. And then the last quadrant is really, it's fun, right? It's the travel, it's the non-necessities, it's the things that we do for enjoyment, but aren't necessarily going to help us capture wealth. So when we're looking at a primary residence within somebody's plan, a lot of times I get the question of, Chad, should I put down a lot? Should I put down a little? And there are a few different competing factors. We're looking at cash flow, which we talked a little bit about, and then we're also looking at the long-range planning. Can somebody buy, can somebody rent, and still achieve their other goals? And in many cases, people haven't clearly defined what their goals are, right? Whether it's kids' educations, whether it's retirement lifestyle, but at the end of the day, the math really doesn't lie. So if somebody came in and said, hey, we'd love to be in this type of home, but we can't afford it yet based on everything else that we have going on, maybe we start with a smaller home, or maybe we rent that home. That might be a good fit for rent in that moment. But as time goes on, generally people are going to have a little bit more clarity around what they can afford and what they can't, so long as they have that perspective of those 4 quadrants.
That's great, and having an advisor that can outline a plan is necessary. So I want to talk about your mindset and growing up in Buffalo, New York, being a Bills fan. And by the way, we had Dave Meltzer here on the podcast this week, and his partner, which we'll have on here soon, is Warren Moon. And he was a quarterback of a game that you probably remember.
Yep.
The Oilers and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
You guys came back and won that game. I didn't know, maybe you didn't either, that they were up by so much at one point that they actually pulled Warren Moon out of the game. Do you remember that?
I didn't remember them pulling him out, no.
Yeah, they pulled him out of the game, and then the game got close, and then he caught back up, and from what Dave told me, I'll go watch the film myself, is that he almost came back and won it at the end.
Yeah.
So how things would have changed if he would never have come out of the game. So
yeah.
Cool thing about Buffalo. So how was it growing up in Buffalo, New York? Tell me about that.
It was unique. It was, I grew up in a very small town, about an hour southwest of Buffalo, and spent most of my time, as a kid playing sports in Buffalo proper, and then, post-college lived directly in Buffalo. And very different mindset from what we have out here in California. And, I used to remember that show, that MTV show Cribs.
Oh, absolutely. I had to watch every episode.
So I think you can... You can put people in one of 2 categories. You either watch Cribs with somebody and they say, oh, that's ridiculous, that's insane, why would you ever want that? Where I was a kid that said, well, what else am I going to do? Like, why not figure out how I can get there and do it in a way that I can actually afford it, right? I think there's...
Smart.
Yeah, there's doing that. So one of the things I love about California is there's a lot of big thinkers here and a lot of people doing big things, and it's easy to see success all around you. And I'm extremely grateful for some of the Buffalo roots that I have and some of the hard work that was instilled, and happy to bring that out here.
And that came from watching your parents be entrepreneurs and be self-employed and be agents, right?
Yeah.
What did you see them go through being independent contractors?
Well, as a kid, you really have no idea, right? It's either, hey, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal for me to get a new hockey stick after mine broke, or, hey, things seem a little bit tighter. But growing up, Dad's been a broker now, I want to say, for 35 years. They own and operate a little brokerage outside of Buffalo there, and the market's smaller, but the principles are the same. And I remember just seeing him with some of his investments and buying and selling and flipping properties and student rentals and some of the positives, and then some of the challenges that came along that in the real world. And then also some of the emotion of dealing with clients and some of the challenges with closings and last minute contracts falling through, as well as when times were good. So I think it gave me a good perspective on dealing with folks with variable incomes, and how do you plan when you say, hey, I could make a lot, or I could make a little, I could pay a ton in taxes, I could pay nothing, I want to buy properties, I want to build my business, I want to also have some things that are a hedge or flexible. How do you balance that? So I think it was a good basis, having grown up in that environment.
Good, hardworking family, but also a lot to look forward to and a lot online every day.
Yeah.
It's competitive, fast-paced environment, and you learn the hustle probably early on by watching them just make it happen, whatever had to get done, right?
Yeah, and I commend them a lot. They were always there for sports and doing the things, but I know that there were weekends and there were evenings and there were early mornings and things where they were doing stuff that they had to do to give us the lifestyle that we had.
And was it sort of understood that, hey, they have to go do this so we can have our lifestyle? Was it a conversation? Because maybe you have parents here who have kids who are agents or loan officers, and maybe they don't have kids yet. So how do you explain to someone, like, what were the lessons you learned from your parents on how to make it good for your kids to see parents hustling like that?
Yeah, I don't know that it was direct conversations. I'm sure it was a lot of little conversations throughout of, hey, we work as hard as we work so we can do these things, so you guys can play the travel sports, and we can take a nice vacation every now and again. And I grew up what I would consider maybe upper middle class. I had everything that I needed and some of what I wanted. But the thing that I was grateful for is very early on, my parents said, if you want things, like, what are you going to do to earn it? We're not just going to give you stuff. If you want a new bike or a new toy or something like that, you're going to be mowing lawns, you're going to be washing cars, you're going to be doing what you're doing. And actually, my first 3 jobs were farming, landscaping, construction, which...
Get your hands dirty, huh?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing with the real estate side is I've seen the construction aspect of it as well,
awesome.
And some of the pros and cons and challenges that come with that piece. But, while I was out there, some of the guys that I was working with, they were like, hey, you're too smart to be here. Don't swing a hammer for a living. So
there you go. So use your brain. You got yourself to California.
Yeah.
You started a great company, which is you're a founder of, which is MST, your founding partner. Mm-hmm. So talk about the company. Talk about what you guys do now that we know how smart you are.
Yeah. So with our company, we offer comprehensive financial planning in its purest form. So a lot of the financial industry, financial advisors, a pretty broad term.
Yes.
You have some people that manage money, or you have some people that sell insurance products, or you have some people that just do retirement plans, and everybody can call themselves a financial advisor, and it makes it very confusing for the client to say, well, what is that, right? Or I have a financial advisor that does this, or I know somebody that does that. Comprehensive financial planning or wealth management to us is, how does everything work together? So even the things that we don't directly manage. A lot of our clients will come to us and they're usually very good at making money at something. It could be their day-to-day job, but they could be a business owner, they could be a private equity guy, hedge fund capital, you name it. And they have all of these pieces, right? These spinning plates that they're trying to keep in the air. They've got their business, they've got their employees, they've got their investment strategy, they've got their real estate investments, they've got their insurances, they've got their estate planning, their taxes, their attorneys, and they're trying to figure out how it all works together. So we really come in as a partner with those clients, help sit in the middle and say, how does this stuff work together? Right? And at the end of the day, I think clients want to know 2 things. They want to know, number 1, am I missing something important or useful? And number 2, is there a more efficient way to get from A to B? Right? If I was in Buffalo, I could ride my bike across the country and get here, but it's a hell of a lot more efficient to fly in a plane.
Yes.
And I think financially, the people that we come across work so hard for their money that they want to make sure it's not squandered and they're making the right decisions and that they're able to shape their perspective and their way of thinking about wealth and how they're building it now rather than looking back 20, 30, 40 years down the road saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
So you save them time,
Yeah.
help them make money, and do it all efficiently by being a partner in that process with them.
Exactly. And it sounds cheesy, but it's honestly putting together a plan that is in alignment with what they truly value. And sometimes we find that people are just aimlessly running. And when you really sit them down and say, what are we doing all this for? I can't tell you how many people I meet that make millions of dollars a year, and it's like, oh, well, okay, well, what are you doing it for? And they're like, well, what do you mean?
Right.
I want to make more. I want to do that. Well, then what? Right? Because someday you're going to wake up and you're going to be in your 60s or 70s, and you say, I'm really happy I did things the way that I did them, or I wish I'd done things differently.
Think about that. How many of you guys out there today are aimlessly running without a plan, getting every day up at the same time, going to your job, spending money? At the end of the month, I know because I see all your tax returns and income statements, so I know that the majority of you out there are not saving and don't have a plan. And you're either too shy or too intimidated. Why aren't more people getting a hold of advisors and making a plan, you think?
Well, I think part of it, and rightfully so, is there's a lot of skepticism. 08, 09 is still very raw for a lot of people. Even though I didn't have two nickels to rub together during that time frame, I think there were years my assistants probably made more than I did. And, for that, it's still pretty vivid. And people got crushed, and they were taught to, distrust a lot of people, and everybody's out for you.
Yeah,
without
a lot of that.
Yeah, without understanding some of the mechanics of why things happened and better perspective, so to speak. So part of it, I think, is skepticism, and part of it is it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to think about, where do I even start? Where would I go? How do I know the right questions to ask? And
it's that first step phobia. I think in almost everything, people don't know. I don't want to take the first step to either get that job because I'm not going to get that job. I don't want that first step to get that date because they're going to say no. I don't want the first step to get that investment because I'm going to lose my money or buy that house.
Yeah.
And there's so many companies in all these industries. Like in real estate, it's Purple Bricks, it is Redfin, it is Zillow, it is Trulia, it is all these companies looking to automate the sale. I saw a stat this week that said by 2020 that 1 million sales jobs will be automated. And I think that they only automate you if you let them automate you. And so talk about how you feel about these automated systems companies, how you deal with these robo-advisors that are out there these days. Do they really eat market space? Are they for real? How do you compete? How do you hold your ground?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think I'll start with a story, right? So this was maybe 3-4 months ago. I had a package that was being delivered, maybe a $30, $40 package, from Amazon or whoever it was from. I don't even remember at this point in time. But I remember that the USPS said that UPS is shipping it, and UPS said that USPS is shipping it. So here I am. I'm on the phone. I'm wasting my time. I've got this level of frustration with these, phone lines and the online and the, all of the calling around for a $40 package. Now imagine that with all of your wealth, or imagine that with your home. To me, there are things that you can automate, but at the end of the day, all of these decisions, a home buying process, somebody's wealth, as much as we like to think that we can all be Spock and be completely illogical and just follow a computer's orders and then everything's going to be perfect, there's always going to be an emotional element to it. We're all human.
Love that.
So at the end of the day, when people want to be comforted, a lot of times they want to talk to somebody. I know a lot of times when I'm calling these automated numbers, I'm like, whatever I have to do to get to a human being, that's what I want to do.
I'm the same way.
And, where I think there might be a fit for some of the robo-advisors in my industry or something along those lines, it's just people that don't have access to somebody like me, right? So if somebody said, I don't have access, there's nobody like you around, or I don't know where to start, or I need something done quickly, I think there is a place. But for most people that genuinely care about their home, about their wealth, they're going to want to talk to somebody.
So we're solving a pretty big global problem right now.
Yeah.
And I believe that, me and my team and people that I know that are agents or insurance agents or whatever, they're going to give you the best chance to get the best result. But the problem is that the average everyday consumer, like you just said, doesn't have access to that true 1% professional. So we should work on something that gives these people access to people in our industry.
Yeah.
And if they have that, then we're not going to be automated, because Look, I know people in the industry that are doing mortgages or real estate, and they should be automated. Those people should be automated. They go to lunch 2 hours a day, they work an hour here, an hour there, and they don't get back to you. Like, I would love a computer to do their job because they're just pushing buttons and getting a result.
Yeah.
But the experts, you talk about the one percenters, those can't be automated. They are special. You have a great concept, and I want you to let us know what you think about the one percenters.
Yeah, so the whole, I guess, premise behind why I started doing what I'm doing and who I work with is at the end of the day, it's a bell curve to everything, right? You've got the below average, you've got the average, and you've got the above average. And I don't care if it's, building a business as a financial advisor, if it's in the mortgage world, if you're a professional athlete, everything will have a bell curve. So by definition, people that are in the 1% have to, again, by definition, think and act differently than everybody else. Otherwise, if they just did the exact same thing that everybody else does, they're going to end up exactly like everybody else.
Got it.
So if you look at my clientele that says, hey, we want to be the best in the world at whatever it is that we're doing, it takes an immense amount of focus, effort, energy. The fact that we know it's going to take that much there for us to think that we can also learn everything that there is to learn and then how to apply it and, go to Google and type a question in.
So there's no way I could, with my schedule, my kids, my family, no matter what I do, ever catch up to what you're doing at your level because you've done it for as long as you have, as well as you have. Is that kind of the point?
Yeah, and even at times I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much more I want to learn, and I spend an immense amount of time listening to podcasts, reading books, going to seminars, doing all these things, consuming as much as I consume.
So you can help people educate themselves.
Exactly, and at the end of the day, it's all a refinement of philosophy and a level of thinking. It has very little to do with the tools and the mechanics. That piece is important, but how we view it to me is a little bit more important. So, this idea of the 1%, if I think about it from a wealth management standpoint, the average American can't retire on their own savings. They're not in a position to be able to do the things they want to do. I think it's something like 47% of America pays 0% in federal income taxes, and another 30% is in the single digits. And if you think about a lot of my clients here, they're well above that, well into the 30, 40, 50%. So for them, thinking and acting like most people, it's a different ballgame. Way different ballgame. So, you'll see some of the robo stuff or some of these, personalities that are out selling books or programs to the masses. Well, they're speaking to the masses. They're not speaking to you, right? So that's my 1% theory. Is that I think in order to do things differently, and one thing that I tell every single one of my clients is, at the end of the day, I don't care where you go. You could be at your kids' sports games, you could be at a cocktail party, you could be at a charity event. You'll tell somebody what you're doing from a wealth management standpoint, and they're going to say, you're doing what? You're an idiot. Why would you do that? You should take it all, put it in gold. You should buy Bitcoin. You should buy real estate.
Everyone's got their opinion.
Everybody's got their opinion, right? If we're getting feedback and people are saying, why are you doing that? That's how we know it's working. Because if everybody that we met with, or if we said, hey, 95% of people are like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing, we should be afraid, right? We're going to end up exactly like the average if everybody's agreeing with us.
So different is good. Unique is good.
Exactly.
Being a thought leader is important.
Exactly.
And so, if you want the automated experience, you'll get automated results. If you want to really succeed, you want to be partner with someone that's very successful, and they can guide you. It can teach you what they know. Yeah. It's a trained characteristic. You didn't just do this yesterday. This is your life. Yeah. You founded a company. That is outstanding. So talk about your trusted advisor approach, because you truly are a trusted advisor. And why is that so important to you?
It's so important to me because I think at the end of the day, people all have fears, right? And in the Bible it says the truth will set you free. To me, clarity is very freeing. So some of the stuff that we're talking about with people's finances or purchasing a home and all the fears and questions that they have, if we really sit down and dive into, how things work, and is this a good fit? Can you afford that home? Are you not saving enough to get to where you want to go based on reasonable assumptions? A lot of people operate under what I call the Ostrich Approach, where they're just putting their head in their sand, hoping it works out at the end of the day.
Right.
And then they call me when they're 54 years old saying, hey, we want to shut it off. Maybe 62, 63, we have nothing saved for retirement. How do we do it? And it's like, well, look for a time machine, but we'll do what we can do along the way. And as a trusted advisor, I'm in this game for the long haul. So I'm viewing, even though sometimes the advice that I tell, that I give to people, or the things I'm telling, I know sometimes it stings. I'm in tune with that. Sometimes the advice stings, but I want the decisions that people are making, them to be happier every single year that they see me, right? If I make something that's in my best interest today, but they hate me a little bit more every time they see me, or isn't going to work out over the long run, that's somebody that says, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm not going to introduce my friends to you, right? I want to get more and more thank you cards, more and more Christmas cards every single year, and I'm less interested in saying what feels good and more interested in saying what I think is right. And that's not going to be for everybody, and I'm okay with that. But in the mortgage world, in the real estate space, in the financial advisor space, for people that are true professionals and want to be doing this for an extended period of time, it's managing, not only the day-to-day, but also how do you make just really, really sound recommendations for folks where they're going to look back on it someday and say, hey, you know what? Ben gave me great advice 10 years ago. And as a result, he's getting my business for the rest of my life and all of my friends, right?
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Giving that sound advice based on what's best for them is something a computer can't ever do.
Yeah.
It can't give you advice. It can give you a program, but it sure as hell can't tell you how old your kids are, where they're going to go to school. Here's advice based on that geography, based on that person's life plan.
Yeah.
So I love that you're that trusted advisor, and that's the approach all of us can take. Let's give the mortgage group and the real estate group some knowledge today.
Yeah.
Everything that you study and learn, and the places you go, and people you see, and books that you read and write. What's some advice you can give for the current modern day loan officer, real estate agent, and then also the home buyer?
The best advice that I would give to the real estate agents and the loan officers is to do a better job as much as they can, and the best do it the best, right? Find a better way to relate with the client and to what they're truly thinking, and address the elephant in the room, right? So in a lot of circumstances, if somebody comes in, and I get people that come into my office all the time talking about purchasing homes or their mortgages or whatever their interest rates are, there's very little focus on what an interest rate is, so to speak. Sometimes we get into the weeds, and more on how does it feel, how does it fit, where does it go in.
Love that.
So at the end of the day, when if a loan officer came to somebody and said, hey, tell me about where does this fit in with everything else that you have going on, and getting a good idea of, can they truly afford this home? How much should they genuinely put down? Are we looking at the right price range for these people? If they can relate with them and truly show them that they care, bring some value that has nothing to do with the mortgage world. If I give somebody advice on refinancing a property or talking to a professional, someone like yourself who's going to be an expert in that space, I don't get paid on that. I don't want to get paid on that. But they know at the end of the day, I'm doing it because it's in their best interest. And some of the best that I've seen in both as agents or loan officers are really able to relate with the client from not only the that transaction, but how does it fit into their plan as a whole.
I love that. Any buying advice for the person looking to buy a home? We talked about it a little bit earlier, and maybe it's the same, is that you really want to have a plan and then buy according to that plan and understand. We were talking before offline, and I love what you said then about if you want the 1, 2, 3, and the 4. Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give some of the listeners a little bit of a premise, I've probably had, 6, 7, 8,000 meetings at this point in time, ranging from people with nothing to billions of dollars.
Lots of experience. Listen up, guys. 8,000 meetings. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of people you talk to.
Yeah. And it's very easy to see what is sustainable and what's not, right? And when I'm thinking about fitting a home into somebody's plan, in general, just to give you guys an idea, for somebody to create this lifestyle, nobody wants to get to retirement and say, hey, I want to significantly downsize my lifestyle. So what that means by definition is we have to be doing what it takes to get to retirement to sustain whatever lifestyle that we have. So on average, it generally takes somebody to be saving somewhere in the ballpark of 20 to 25% of their income to be able to, even just based on reasonable assumptions, to get to a point to where they can live the same lifestyle through retirement. So if we start with that, if we start with this idea of paying somebody paying themselves first, and then we look into what can we afford in terms of travel and fun and housing, Most of the housing that people get into tends to be about 30 to 35% of their take-home pay is what I see on average for sustainable plans.
I agree with that.
So, if we're in an arena where somebody's purchasing a home that's maybe 4x their income, a lot of times there's very little room left over for fun and for savings. 3x, we're typically able to do a pretty ample job of, taking family trips and saving and doing the things we need to do to get to where we want to be long term. 2x, we can have a lot of fun. And 1x, we can live like a rap star, right? So, and that's a good idea, good.
That's such a great way to relate, because really, if you're looking at buying a home, is it all about your home, or is it all about your fun? And fun would be 1, and home would be 4.
Yeah.
And then 3 is a mix, and then 2 is a pretty good mix as well.
Yeah. And I think if we're getting into the environment, and this is a great way to say, hey, if we're looking at homes that are maybe $2 million or $2.5 or $3 million, if somebody says, hey, sure, could I cut the check for a $3 million home every month? Could we find a way to make it work? But if the advisor comes in and says, hey, listen, based on everything else you have going on, I really think we should be looking at the 2.25 range, but somebody can do it from a sustainable standpoint. The client's no dummy, right? They know that at the end of the day, Ben gave me advice, or the real estate agent gave me advice, or the loan officer gave me advice that was, directly probably cut their compensation, but it was the right thing for me. That's my trusted person.
That's great.
And at the end of the day, even if you get 1 or 2 or 3 trusted referrals from that person over a year or 2 or 3 years, your compensation is going to more than exceed that, because there's so few people out there, so few professionals out there giving, really sound advice rather than just trying to be transactional.
I love it. I love my takeaways is give the advice, seek the 1%, be irreplaceable by giving advice that you would take yourself, and treat your customers just like you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
I think no matter where you work, that's true. But hearing what you said as an advisor, as an expert, it brings clarity that we're doing the right thing, and that we are being set up to be irreplaceable, and that technology might eliminate those that don't see themselves as the 1%. So decide for yourself. Are you someone that can be replaceable, that's just spitting out numbers that a computer is giving you? If so, you're just a calculator. If you really want to maintain a long career, and I think those that can make this transition will get more business, because those that don't survive will only give up their clients to those like us who will do the best for the client.
Yeah.
Any parting words of advice or things you want to say, ways we could follow your journey, if you're someone that needs or is driven to take action today and wants to work with Chad and his team, absolutely you should pick up the phone, follow him. How can they do that today?
Yeah, so I've got, I don't know if you guys will put some of this stuff in show notes. I've got a website. You guys can follow me on Instagram. I'm not active on Twitter or anything along those lines, but MST Wealth Management. We're based here out of Newport Beach. And I welcome conversations with anybody, even if they just have some quick questions.
Cool.
In terms of parting advice, I'm a big fan of, he's deceased now, but Jim Rohn, ROHN, his work. And I know he's a mentor with Tony Robbins and some of these guys. But very early on, he said, if you will change, everything will change for you. And some of the things that I've seen with the most successful individuals I've ever come across is they're constantly asking themselves, what don't I know? So I think if we can approach the world with a curiosity and playing devil's advocate to all these different opinions, I often find that there's truth in everything, but there's no constant. I'm cautious of words like always and never. So that would be my thinking: is be open-minded, be open to change. If we keep doing exactly what we're going to do or we've been doing, we're going to stay exactly where we are, and move forward strongly.
Well, I had a great time. I've learned a lot. I know you all have learned a lot. Follow Chad, get behind him, work with him, and make more money, because we all need it. Let's go crush it.